Jacob Malkoun, hell of a video game player. Excited to see if he can preserve this undefeated record. He is in the green trunks.
If you're a fan of Jordan Burroughs or Bo Nickel or Roddy Piper, maybe they should bring in Earl Hebner or Mike Chioda to referee this one. We have a couple of wrestler grapplers going at it at 185 pounds. Coming up this weekend, Nick Maximov representing Nick Diaz Academy. The Nick Diaz Army, he's taking on Robert Whittaker's buddy, Jacob Mamba Malkoun. And Jacob Mamba Malkoun, a big fan of one Kobe Bryant, but he's not like the Kobe Bryant of MMA at all. He wrestles and wrestles and wrestles, and Nick Maximov, he wrestles. For some reason, I struggle with his last name there. Matt, when you look at this fight, I wouldn't necessarily say that the style is conducive to an all-action type of fight, but if they both decide to strike, I think we could get an interesting fight.
Every weekend, I'm sure there's a fight on every single card that turns a casual fan into a hardcore fan. One of those fights where you didn't know either guy's name going into it, but after that fight's over, it really made you a fan of the sport. This fight's going to take hardcore fans and turn them into casuals. That's how bad I think this fight's going to be. Now, not to discredit either guy's skill set by any means, because don't worry, I'm going to get them their flowers. But it's not an aesthetically pleasing game whatsoever. And I think that's fair to say. Like, when we break down Max Holloway fights, you know what I say when we do that? They're really fun to watch. You know what? Max Holloway's awesome to watch compete in MMA. No one's ever said, cancel our plan Saturday night. Nick Maximov and Jacob Malkoun are about to fight. Like, babe, we can't go to dinner. We can't see your parents. We can't go hang out with our friends. Nick Maximov is on TV. I've got to be there to watch it.
Hold the fucking phone for just a second. They made Nick Maximov and Puna Soriano a co-main event in the last calendar year. How insane is that?
Because Puna puts butts into seats, I guess, because Nick Maximov sure as hell doesn't. This is the thing about this fight. The winner's going to be a name that nobody wants to fight because they have that kind of style that's going to make you look bad no matter what. Nick Maximov has had a lot of success up until this point in his career. And same thing for Jacob Malkoun. I would still say a little bit different because he is 2-2 in the organization. But still, for Maximov, up until his last time out, there wasn't really a reason to think, wow, this guy's wrestling can't be enough to at least get him a borderline ranking. And really, that's just because middleweight division is very wide open, especially the unranked fighters. But Maximov has shown that he hasn't really improved other areas of his game in the UFC up until that point. Now, his striking has gotten somewhat better, but he's still such a single striker or a single shot striker, I should say, that I do worry about him anytime he's going to fight anybody better than someone like Jacob Malkoun. I think this fight is going to be a lot of clinch work. I think we're going to get a lot of wrestling out of this. If that is the case, I do favor Nick Maximov's grappling after it does hit the mat, and I think for that, he might be able to just stay heavier on top longer. But this fight to me is very difficult to break down because I really do think whoever gets the offensive takedown and gets that top position is going to be at enough of an advantage from that point to where I think they can just ride out that one position.
Well, for Jacob Malkoun, he actually did have a pro boxing career. He went 3-0. He won the ADCC trials down in Oceania. And for Malkoun, it really is, his bread gets buttered with his wrestling. And he went from a guy who got knocked out in, 18 seconds in his UFC debut against Phil Haas to, okay, he's Bobby Knuckles' buddy. We're putting him on the card. He's like Nick Diaz's Martin Sano. And then he was really able to kind of prove everybody wrong. And I had a bad taste in my mouth after Malkoun had that debut because I wasn't overly high on him even coming into the Phil Haas fight. I wasn't sure if he'd have any answers to the questions. He struggled with the pressure. It almost looked like a case of UFC jitters too because Haas is just walking him down and Malkoun back straight up. He's trying to kind of move around the outside of the cage. He just didn't look like he had much that night. Beats Abdulrazak Al-Hassan and just took him down and controlled him for large portions of the fight. Fought AJ Dobson, didn't really struggle from the jump. He looks like he's gaining his confidence. And then his last time against Brendan Allen, that might just say unanimous decision. And Brendan Allen's a big name and you know him. But if you go back and watch that fight, Malkoun takes down Allen on half the takedown attempts. That's 7 of 14. And if you go on MMA decisions, out of the overall media scores, they scored it 9-8 in favor of Malkoun over Allen, 29-28 across. But that was a really, really close fight against a guy who's been around the top 15 for a time or two in Brendan Allen. That's really impressive out of Malkoun. And my other counter to you with Nick Maximov, his fight against Andrzej Petrosky. Well, what does Petrosky do? Power takedowns.
Oh, yeah.
Power submissions, which he ended up getting, the anaconda choke out of the roll when he was taking on Maximov. It was like the 10-finger guillotine, and I'm going to talk about a 10-finger guillotine in the co-main event in Cub Swanson's fights, but for Nick Maximov, just wasn't able to get out of that position, and that's where you figured he would excel. But if you rewind that fight and go into the striking, well, what does Petrosky do? Wings power shots to try and close distance. Maximov had good boxing combinations and nice kicks in that fight, so I really did like that out of him. But I think in this matchup, I do agree. Like, are people going to get like overly excited about this one? Maybe not. Maximov, in terms of the odds when he took on Petrosky, minus 365 favorite in that one, whereas for Malkoun, he's been hovering around an underdog throughout his UFC career. So you look at the odds in this matchup, and Maximov open to minus 140, minus 148 right now. Malkoun open plus 120, plus 125. The other thing about this, Maximov, huge wave of, I don't know, fan support from his fight that was technically at heavyweight when he made his Dana White's Contender Series debut. He was fighting a guy on super short notice. They moved it up to heavyweight. The guy weighed in up near the heavyweight limit, and Maximov was able to take him down. But if you will remember when he took on Oscar Cota on Contender Series, Dana White didn't sign him and said that he needs more seasoning. We want him on the Ultimate Fighter. He was able to just wait it out, get a fight against Cody Brundage, which was actually a closer fight. If you go back and rewatch it, Brundage had a lot of success in the striking, whereas Maximov was able to hold him down. The fight against Puna Soriano, same thing. It's just, can Maximov take that JUCO All-American status at a Clackamas College and apply it to a guy like Jacob Malkoun? We'll find out this weekend, but yeah, it's a tough fight when you're trying to break it down. And if you get this one right this weekend, feather in your cap, because this is a really hard one to try and actually make a prediction. It's easy to preview, it's hard to predict.
It is. It's one of those fights, too, where no matter what you're going to say, you're going to look bad because of it. Like, Jacob Malkoun could go out there, look really great on the feet, add some good kickboxing to his game, get our takedown, and just rinse and repeat the whole entire time. I think Maximov, though, I know we get caught into submissions last time out. I just think positionally, once they do hit the mat, when they do get into, half guards, full guards, stuff like that, he's going to be a little bit heavier on top. And that's really the only thing from either guy that I can favor overwhelmingly amongst the other. Like, Jacob Malkoun does get a lot of those takedowns, but the problem is, when you secure 7 takedowns, the guy is getting up. It's like when, again, I'll never forget this. I listened to a grown man cry on radio one time because I was getting ready to listen to Luke Thomas' show on Sirius XM. And there's a wrestling show that happens right before. I think it's called Busted Open. I want to get the name right. It is. There was a guy and they were like, how's Ric Flair that good? And he was like, trolley called in. He was like, how's Ric Flair that good? If you're a 15-time world champion, it means you lost it 14 times. And Buddy wasn't there for any of it. He went next level, lost his mind. With Malkoun, that's the same thing. You're getting these takedowns, but what else are you doing with them? Are you threatening with submissions? Are you getting good ground and pound? A lot of Malkoun is just sitting on top. So I guess ever so slightly I'm going to favor Nick Maximov in this matchup, but this is a really hard fight to predict.
Well, we have a look at the Tapology votes, Matt. Surprised us it is to you. I'm going to say over-under. I think the fan support's still there, even though that co-main event wasn't great. Maximov lost the last fight. I'm going to say over-under 70% Maximov here.
I think it'll be under, but I think it'll be the favorite.
And it's slightly under 1,362 total votes, 64% Maximov, 80% by decision. For the 36% that are Malkoun, 82% by decision. I'll be the dissenting party. For me, with Malkoun, when he's taking on a guy like Brendan Allen, it's a very close fight. It could have gone either way. It's a loss on his record. You take a guy like that down 7 times out of 14 attempts, that's really impressive. A guy like Maximov has good takedown defense. He has good defensive hips, and he can threaten in the scrambles with a lot of his own submissions. You see it with, he'll go armbar triangle to then try and sweep out of the position.
Will he not be a lot bigger, too?
I wouldn't be surprised if he was a lot bigger. You see it on the screen there. He's 6 feet tall to the 5'9" of Malkoun. Malkoun thick, though. And I think for Malkoun, he'll be able to at least keep that top pressure on a guy like Maximov. So ever so slightly I have Malkoun. I'm eager to see how the striking plays out between these two guys, because I think Malkoun could be slightly better in the boxing. I do like the kicks out of Maximov. We'll see how it all shakes out. Let us know in the comments section who you have in a very, very tightly contested fight at middleweight. Will it be Maximov? Will it be Malkoun? In the co-main event this weekend, Cub Swanson, Jonathan Martinez. That's a great fight. In the main event, flyweight frenzy between Alexa Grasso and Viviane Araujo. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks. We always say, let's get into it.